Greetings, magical mages and spiritual sages. Welcome to the Age of the Mage podcast. And this is episode 63. And in episode 62, we started our discussion. This is part two. We started our discussion about spiritual warfare and psychic attacks. And I talked us through a little bit about the fact on how I believe they exist, that this really does exist. And I also mentioned that even though it exists, by no means am I encouraging anyone to dwell on those things, particularly if that is not your brand of spirituality. You know, healers and those of us that have galactic connections to higher dimensions and things, a lot of us don't spend time dwelling on or studying or even learning about some of these darker things, these darker aspects to spirituality and magic. All right. And I understand that because my own past has really not encompassed a lot of study about these things. On the other hand, some of you are here on purpose at this time to be warriors, to be spiritual warriors, to be earth guardians and protectors, and to kind of carry the burden of understanding darkness, understanding the interaction of negative and positive, and how to defend and how to go about cleansing and clearing areas of you know, negative energies. And that is kind of your specialty. That's where your energy is going to lie. That's what you're going to be good at doing. So we're all very different, and some will be more resonant to this subject than others. But what I wanted to do as a group, as a gathering, I wanted to make sure that each and every one of you understands that no matter how much you focus on light and love and truth, and no matter how much we dwell in those marvelous high spheres, these other parts are real and could one day enter into your space. And it wouldn't be right for me to not help us, nudge us all towards some preparation for that day. Just some basic things we can do so that we are ready should we find ourselves face to face with some darkness or with some chaos, or even if we're a healer and we're a priestess and we're counseling someone who is facing those things. At least then we have some basic tools to share and basic tools we can use and rely on that are very necessary, especially given our current time, our current state. So we are at this crossroads. We're coming upon these two very divergent timelines. And one of these timelines is all about free will and personal sovereignty and taking humans into the next best phase of evolution. And the other one, maybe not so much. You know, I see that more as holding humans back and maintaining a status quo, and even some slippage, perhaps putting us into more enslavement than we even currently are. So we want to be careful on which timeline we choose and which one we align with, as we've talked many times before. But because we have these different timelines emerging and kind of vying for our attention, we have different beings surrounding us. We have different agendas and narratives surrounding us. And they're beginning to clash. They're beginning to come into the battle mode. You know, we're seeing those that want to preserve and elevate the human species coming now up against those that would hold the human back and would prefer to carry on with various forms of enslavement. And suddenly there's a tension building, and sides are being taken, and choices are being made, which of course can lead to a little bit more chaos, a little bit more dark versus light stuff, and it can devolve into full-on war. Right? We've seen this in 3D world, and of course I believe it can happen in multi-dimensional realms. And so I'd like each of you to at least have some background and at least be aware of these things so that you become a little more well-rounded, even if this is not the field you'll be working in. There's a very valid need for those of us who can be an exorcist, could be someone who works with departed people who need to move on and be healed. There's even some of us who actually specialize in the angel demon paradigm, and we come to understand working within that paradigm, and sometimes actually work with darker beings, darker entities. So we're all very, very different on what we choose to do. And those people who with more warrior archetypes, with more guardian archetypes, and commander archetype, those types of things which we've gone over in the magical archetypes, those people will also be gaining more and more experience. Their past has probably already brought some pretty heavy challenges into their life, and that's in preparation for how they will serve. Everything comes to us there's no accidents. We acquire our experiences because they're the ones that fit us best and lead us to our destiny. So nothing's an accident. And some of us deal with darker issues all along from the very beginning. And others really get very little experience with that. Their calling is to do something entirely different, right? So I completely understand that. But I am not someone that believes that things go away because we ignore them. I think we need to have some realistic approaches here and do some realistic preparation. We can definitely affect our realities and raise our vibrations by concentrating on light and love and truth and things of such high, divine type natures, right? So there's merit to that belief, absolutely. And we can also drag ourselves down if we dwell on darkness too long, or we interact or invite darkness in. Of course, that can affect us. So those things are very real. But ignoring something, the ignorance of something, that is not a protection. That is a falsehood. When someone creates their reality and we see them not experiencing, or at least not experiencing very much darkness in any way, if they are doing that by using their knowledge, using what they can do magically and spiritually to maintain that type of existence and space and reality, that's very, very different. That is a consciously intended reality, which is very different than someone living in ignorance who happens to have some good luck and the light is shining right now. But the ball might drop any time and the preparation is not there for that. So they're very different things. I don't think it will harm any of us to be a bit realistic about the state of affairs right now and to understand that we may very well be in the very beginning or even in the midst of a war, of a spiritual war. Truth is battling its way up from the dark, and it is trying to be revealed, and darkness is trying to hide it at every step of the way. Our freedoms are being challenged. And we have to even recognize that before we can fight for them, don't we? If we are ignorant of the fact that our freedoms are being challenged, then we can't really very adequately defend those freedoms because we don't even know that that is necessary. So I think what I'm getting at here is that our awareness and our willingness to entertain various options and our refining our discernment is going to play a huge role in our preparation and in what we'll be able to do when we need to do it. We must be aware of things in order to direct our intentions in one direction or another in regards to those things. When we live in a state of not enough information, we may be blessed to never have to confront certain things. But in that case, if we do have to confront something, we're not ready. We're not ready, and it could take a toll on us that it really wouldn't need to take had we been informed, had we been ready. So these kinds of 3D things are easy to spot. They get easier and easier for us to see the importance of. But as magical people, as spiritual workers, we very often forget it's the same for us in other realms. The importance of us preparing for attack or for negative invasions of any sort becomes as important as us, in the 3D world, taking precautions in areas we know we want to maintain a certain level of protection. Some of us really feel we want to lock our doors all the time because we feel like that is a form of protection that makes us feel better. Others are really into prepping and acquiring food and water ahead of time in case that gets hard to find, and that provides a sense of security, knowing that those preparations are in place. Others are doing this in intellectual fields. We might, if we're going to teach, we study first what we're going to teach so that we can pass that on to someone else. And magic and spirit is just so similar, and yet it's so overlooked. It's so often forgotten. So we get going on our own trail of interest. And if that's healing, it's marvelous and that's wonderful. But we can forget that there is value in shielding, and there is sometimes value in offensive measures, and there's also value in at least discerning when those things are necessary. All right, so let's start at the bottom. Let's start at the basics. I would say the first thing we all could improve on and we all should work towards is discernment. Because if, let's say, we're having a bad day and it just seems to go on, and we keep blaming a circumstance, oh, it's raining outside and I just get blue whenever it's gray, or well, it's just, my health isn't that great right now, so I'm sure it's just that. And it may very well be just that. But what if we had this extra sensory perception? What if we bring to bear some of our more refined magical intuition and abilities like that? What if we shed some light on the situation using those things? We might discern, oh, something's not right. I was just blaming this or that, but maybe there is a little bit of extra energy that has settled into my space that is just holding me back. This is why I'm not feeling better. This is why I'm not getting better. And then we can clear that space. And lo and behold, things improve, right? So if without that discernment, without the ability to spot that maybe something foreign to you is involved in these invisible realms, in an aura or in an etheric energy realm that we don't normally see or hear with one of our 5 senses, but being able to realize that, how real that can be and how much that can affect us, that gives us a step up, that brings a state of readiness to us. That's part of the preparation right there, is the fact that you want to be more aware of your surroundings. You're willing to say, lots of things can be happening to me. I am a multidimensional person, being. And so if you truly believe that, all right, then you need to also accept that things can happen to you multidimensionally, and that they can affect you in this 3D world because they have happened to you. It's in another dimension, at another level of your body. Right? So I think our very first thing that all of us can use, no matter what kind of magic we prefer to use, no matter what style of spiritual connection we utilize normally, this heightened sensitivity, this discernment is going to help all of us. And asking for this, and working with it, being aware, noticing nuances in the world, just allowing your natural sensitivity to reignite. Let that happen. Part of this is probably our culture does not support this type of sensitivity. And so many of us have been stuffed down and said, oh, you're just imagining things. How many times have we heard that, right? Your imagination is off the charts. You're just imagining that. Oh, you're not really cold. It's not cold in here. It's warm. What's wrong with you? Oh, you're just overly sensitive. I didn't say that in any kind of mean way. You're just taking it wrong. So we have all been bombarded with messaging that makes us pull into our shells and says, oh, I really shouldn't be that sensitive, should I? Oh, I was just imagining that. How silly of me. Okay, I'm asking you to start doing the reverse and start fast and start now. Okay. Because I believe the time is coming just around the corner. If it hasn't happened to you already, it's almost there. It's on your doorstep when you are going to need every bit of that sensitivity back. You're going to need every bit of that discernment. You're going to need your extrasensory perception on full tilt because things are going to happen that require that level of sensitivity. Okay? So let it back in. Get working with it. Start honoring it. Pay attention to it. And don't let people take that away from you. Let's get on that plane first. That's a great starting spot for all of us. All right, now let's move on. Another tool. Another tool on top of a heightened awareness is going to be the use of shielding techniques. So this is one of the defensive techniques. Now, not all of us are good at shielding because it can even work against some of us. The healers and the priest and priestess lines, those soul lines that we've talked about, they kind of rely on open channels. We like to feel an exchange between people. We are not in the habit of putting up a shield because we want people to be able to feel safe around us. We want an inclusive space, and we tend to have weaker boundaries and drop our shields in order to perform our spiritual gifts and exchanges with other people that need us. So for some people, shielding is just not natural. It's not easy. And the empath is usually a healer of some sort, whether it's an emotional healer, physical or psychic healer, and they do the same things. As much as they know they need shielding, they resist shielding because it is their empathy that connects them to every being all of a sudden. So, a part of the empath doesn't want to cut that off, but the other part of the empath gets overwhelmed because it's too much. So others just have a knack for shielding. Warriors, vampire soul lines, some of the creator artisan soul lines, the protectors, the guardians. I mean, those of you that feel that kind of energy in your life magically are probably much better at shielding. It comes naturally to you. It's important to you. People with a lot of earth in their astrological natal charts usually have wonderful shielding techniques already in place. So we're all very, very different. Again, let's go to the bottom line. Let's go to the place where all of us kind of find some common ground because we're not all going to build the best shields in the world. So what I think is the answer here is to become familiar with the concept of shielding. And I've done a couple podcasts on that. Please feel free to look back onto those, and we will do future in-depth podcasts as we dig deeper into each of the archetypes. We're going to come on to shielding even harder. We're going to do some shielding exercises together. But at the very least, get this shield idea in your mind. You need to realize that you can do this, that you can create an etheric bubble around yourself, and you can program that the way you need to just get a little bit of extra protection. And in one of the podcasts where I talked about shielding, it doesn't always have to be a static, hard shield. Some people choose to use power animals or those that come to them to help with this. There's just all kinds of different ways to shield yourself. But get something going. Acknowledge that it's valuable. Acknowledge that you'd like to have some sort of armor around you that would just notify you, hey, I'm getting hit. I'm taking a ding here. I'm taking a hit there. Just a little bit of shielding will not hurt you. It will not, it will absolutely not interfere with the magic you can work. For those of you who are not familiar with shielding, it will actually protect you so that you can retain your strength and the energy you need to do more of what you came to do. Now, let's say you're one of these people that's not very good with shielding. And you've done this first part. You've kind of become aware, and you've allowed your intuition to come back up, and you've allowed your sensitivity to rise up again, and you're really honoring these parts of you again. And then you do the second part, and you say, all right, a shield is necessary. I get it. I got to do something. So you kind of construct a little flimsy thing, and you forget to reinforce it. Maybe once a month you pay attention to it. So it gets pretty droopy. And then one day an attack hits, and you're just pretty sure this is not good. I have been attacked. Maybe you have a nightmare. Maybe it gets in your psyche somehow. However it gets in, you're aware of it. All right. Those of us that need help, that the next step is to ask for help. Because as your awareness goes up, and as you try to do the best you can do with the tool of shielding, there's the third part, which is, hey, I need help. There are people in our gathering that are superb with shields of protection, and just let us know, or reach out to one of your friends that you feel has a knack for this and say, I think I'm getting hit with something today that seems out of the ordinary. It seems kind of negative. Is there anything you could advise me? Can you do something? Can you help? We have people that have helped us and have been willing to actually carry our shields for us when they sense that we're just not up to par with this particular skill. So this is a point of knowledge about yourself that ties back into why we spend time on the magical persona, because the more you know yourself, you know your weaknesses. And if this type of magic is one of your weak points, then make an ally with someone that can offset this for you, right? But let's not ignore it. Let's be aware. Let's be aware that we may need some of these skills, because that's the message that I'm really being prompted to share with you. The last podcast, number 62, and this one is to cover some of this ground that's not easy to talk about. I know it's not. But we've got to do it, because we will not be able to withstand what's coming if we don't lay some foundations in this area. I hear a lot about, spiritual warfare. That term gets tossed around a lot. Psychic attack, these get tossed around a lot. But because it doesn't happen to us very often, at least most of us, there are some that deal with it all the time. But for a lot of us, it doesn't happen. And all of a sudden, when it starts happening, we're thrown off. We're just shocked. What's this about? This is not pleasant. I did not sign up for this. What is happening? Well, the problem is that we're not really on the front lines most of the time. And so we're not aware that battles are bloody, battles are messy, battles are gritty, battles require courage, battles are inconvenient. They throw your life off. You're following along on this great schedule, you're getting things done, and an invasion happens, or a natural disaster happens, a flood, a fire. It's inconvenient at the very least. And unfortunately, it can be very traumatic. At the upper ends, it can take lives. These kinds of things can actually cost life, and so they're not pleasant. And it is easy for us to forget that it requires some sturdiness. It requires some rigor. It requires some discipline. It requires some commitment to hold our position of love, truth, and light in the middle of the battlefield. It's different than holding that position when we're surrounded by others of love, truth, and light. Very different, right? Now, I believe our network offers us the ability to have the kinds of etheric connections that will help us feel like we're not alone. We're not out on a battlefield alone. The more we share with each other and the more we gravitate towards this network and others that support our beliefs and our basic frequencies and our ideals, yes, that offers us a protective uh, team, that offers us connections, that offers us a kind of etheric buffering zone. But at the same time, those of you listening may really be here because you're going to get called up to the front lines. You're going to get called into the battle. Now, even the healers listening, who do not normally spend their own time, with this dark stuff, how do we know that you won't become a triage nurse, right? How do we know that part of your new role as our earth shifts and as we go into times of greater warfare and greater schism, perhaps you will be shifting some of your healing to those who are battling darkness, and that your knowledge will grow and your abilities to help them will grow, and having some of these basics out of the way will really serve you, even in areas that you normally would never suspect you would use this knowledge. Okay. So I won't go on much longer. I think many of you can read between the lines of what I'm saying. I will probably create some messages that I won't publish here in the main podcast list. But when I do that, I will certainly let you know. And those would be available on the Modern Masters site. And those will be very specific and might get into more detail and deeper concepts that you could pick and choose. You can say, okay, I want to go down that rabbit hole more. Because I'm a warrior, I want to learn more about that. I'll go ahead and listen. And for those of you who don't have that interest, no problem. It's not for you, and that's great. But I might do that to help too, because I really want us all to be ready. I want us to have the chance to, while the time is still here, while the momentum is still building, and we have the opportunity for preparation, I want us to take that opportunity. I want us to be ready. And so we've covered today a couple basics. We've covered this idea that it's time to let your sensitivity rise up again so that your awareness, your discernment, your intuition gets much better. Just let it go. Let it expand. Forget all those naysayers. Forget all those people telling you that's your imagination. This is not the time. You are here to be magical leaders. They are not, okay? They are carrying another role, and that's great. But you must honor your role. This is your role. Now let's get to honoring it and let it flourish and let it thrive. And then secondly, let's learn some basic defenses, because we are going to be lights that shine. We are going to be leaders, and we're going to take some hits for that. All right. So we need to be ready. Then let's get over the pride. Let's be willing to ask for help. It doesn't matter who it is. If you sense that somebody is better at that than you are, let's go get that help. Because then they are fulfilling their role. They're happy to do that. And they get practice. They get to practice their magic and see what works and what doesn't work. So don't hesitate to ask for help. Now, and then the next phase is offensive strategies. And we won't go into those on this particular podcast. And I don't know yet if we'll do it as a general podcast or if we'll do it as a special, separate one. We'll find out. We'll see. But we can keep going down this line. You guys keep exploring it yourselves. And it was just so important to share. So I feel it's time. I've been personally contacted by too many now that are undergoing attacks, unfortunately. So the time is here. It's upon us. And we need to be ready. And we can be, because we have the power to be ready. We have allies. We have allies here with fellow humans. We have allies in multiple dimensions. And we've been given all the tools we need to do this. So I want to just help us know that, and share that fact with you. so that you do not begin to be afraid, so that you don't feel overwhelmed, so that you do not pull back from your marvelous destiny that's awaiting you, because you can do it. And I'll leave us there for today with this message. Very grateful to each and every one of you, as always. Thank you. Many, many thanks to those of you who have contributed to me personally, for extra shielding and extra advice and healing and all kinds of things. Thank you so much. And let's proceed. Let's proceed. The game is afoot, and we're in it. I will return soon, and I will say goodbye for now.